Hey everybody, I'm here at the National Civil War Museum in Frederick, Maryland. Try to keep my voice down. We're going to start here with some mannequins and then move around to a couple rooms that I find of particular interest. It's a great museum. Of course, I've got limited time here, so I'm just going to kind of walk through. I'm going to try not to, never mind. This is the kind of the amputation room here, the old hospitals. This is really important. This sums up a lot of what I would really have to tell you. But one thing I want to say right away is that there are so many misconceptions about the Civil War, it's impossible to go through the litany. One misconception of the Civil War was that surgeons were butchers, that they didn't know what they were doing, that they were unfit to treat people, that they lacked training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Almost every story that you've heard about surgeons, surgery during the Civil War, amputations, so on and so forth, is false. And I want to make that very clear. This poster here talks about the introduction of the mini ball and how it radically changed the war, changed warfare in general. It was basically a soft hollow point that did incredible damage once it got in the body, often shattered bones to pieces. Sometimes it would actually blow a man's forearm off his elbow, if you will. Not to be too graphic in my description. But that really changed things. That made surgeries much harder. And in a war like this, with a staggering rate of casualties, no matter how many personnel there were, it was, look at that scene. It was literally impossible to treat every individual not with the utmost care that the surgeons wanted to, but in a timely fashion. Most people don't understand mass cal events, or what military folks call mass casualty situations. When these things happen, whether it's because of a war or a natural disaster, most people cannot begin to imagine the horror and the depressing sense of time, the urgency of what to do with so many bodies. How do we prioritize who gets first treatment? How do we prioritize who gets treated in the middle? And then what do we consider, kind of low grade issues, if you will? The casualties came in at a staggering rate. The mini ball was introduced and ultimately changed the course of warfare and treatment. So you have to, this is one of those things. Let me show you before and after here. That's before Private Roland Ward from the 4th New York. This was after. He actually had an amazing surgery. Here, you can screenshot that if you want, but I've got to keep it moving. It's just, it's very difficult and understandably for most people to imagine how to react in a situation this foul, this, to this level of death everywhere by the thousands, by the hundreds of thousands per conflict. This is one of those things, you have to put yourself in these people's shoes and then ask yourself, how could I have actually done any better? Because the fact is that you wouldn't have been able to do any better than these people did. These were the surgeons, doctors, and nurses of the Civil War were incredibly brave. I'm gonna, get emotional at some point in this video. Sorry. They were incredibly brave people who took the task and did everything they could to give the best treatment possible to thousands of soldiers, thousands of wounded, thousands of people at death's doorstep, thousands of people with sickness, ranging from dysentery to, measles, smallpox. And don't forget, this is before the age of antibiotics. I'm not getting into vaccines. This doesn't really have to do with vaccines. I'm talking about antibiotics. And this was even before the age of antibiotic medicine. So you have to keep all these things in mind before you go making claims that these people didn't know what they were doing and they were unprofessional. You must try as hard as you can. This is a good screenshot. But I'm going to keep it moving. Sorry, here, there, and then there. Heck of a guy right there, Walt Whitman. There's no way you can properly understand this until you can put yourself in these people's shoes as best you can, and then at that point you will begin to understand what they had to deal with, because it was horror and misery to the likes of which you cannot imagine. You just can't imagine. I'm gonna get that this is a big place, but it's kind of a maze, so I'm gonna kind of accidentally loop around some of the same places twice. I think that's most of what I want to say. I'll try to let some of the exhibits do most of the rest of the talking. But you just cannot begin to imagine what these people had to deal with. These people were extremely heroic, who were treating these people. Despite the hows and whys of how we got into this mess, which I've kind of already addressed. This is a good one. This is on St. Elizabeth's Hospital, so you can maybe pause that. And St. Elizabeth's, of course, is in downtown Washington. Most people understand it as a mental asylum, and it was, but during the Civil War, or towards the war's end, it became a hospital for medical treatment as well as mental treatment of the soldiers who, as you can imagine, came out of this war with all kinds of mental conditions. You take the stories that you've heard about World War I and Vietnam and all that stuff. I don't know why people don't, why the Civil War in people's minds doesn't come to the fore in just the same way, because it took a terrible toll on everybody in every way that you could ever imagine. Physically, spiritually, emotionally. It was devastating. And I strongly urge people to come to this hospital. Perhaps even before, if you haven't been to Gettysburg or Antietam or Manassas or Harper's Ferry, places like that, that you actually might want to make this your first stop, because I want people to nip their misconceptions and their glorification about war right in the bud. There was nothing nice about this war. There was nothing righteous about this war. I've already gone over that, so I'm not going to get over it again. Look at this here. This is Frederick Hospitals after Antietam. Take a good look. This whole city became a hospital. Of course, there were a couple battles that prompted that. Of course, there was, let me get the order right. I mean, there was South Mountain, there was Antietam, and there was Gettysburg. Other nearby towns also had to step up to the plate, such as Middletown, and other smaller towns in the area. But Frederick, by far, took on a lot of the heavy lifting, as well as all the people of Frederick. Of course, there was trained people who were treating the wounded and taking care of the wounded. But everybody had to more or less participate. Everybody had to open their doors. Churches and schools had to open their doors. Again, as I've mentioned in the Civil War, every building that could feasibly used became a hospital. I'm near the end of my time. I may shoot another film down here, but I want people to really think deeply about this, because there's nothing to glorify about this war or any war. I don't care how patriotic you are. You know, even those who have served, I think may still find their justifications, but they would also agree with me that it was beyond ugly. It was something they would never wish on their worst enemies, let alone, you know, have one of their family members or hear about one of their family members, you know, coming back from the war without a leg, with a bullet in their brain, so on and so forth. And that happened all across this nation, certainly all across the state and all across Pennsylvania and all across Virginia. And it was beyond awful. And this museum does a great job of portraying that. I'm sick to death of museums and battlefields and agencies that pretty much spend most of their time glorifying the Civil War or any war. That's not what should be remembered, or at least not the only part. What should also be remembered is the horror and also the heroism that people showed when they had to step up to the plate. I'm out of time, guys. I may or may not take another video here, but till the next one.